to the Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs podcast. Josh all alone with you guys today, and I've got part, I guess this will be 4 or 5, however many we go into, a Barry Shuck Senior Bowl breakdown, talking about these prospects. Last week we did parts 1, 2, and 3, talking about quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, offensive linemen, everything on the offensive side of the ball. Great information. So if you missed those episodes, make sure you guys go back in your podcast app or here on YouTube and check out those episodes. But today we're diving into the defensive side of the ball. We're going to kick things off here. Part 4, the defensive line area the Browns really need to focus on this offseason. We start with the edge rushers, we go into the defensive tackles, and then on the following episode, we will wrap up the discussion. We will have linebackers, cornerbacks, safeties, and a kicker, because we talk about some Dustin Hopkins stuff. So stay tuned for that coming up after this episode as well. Just want to remind everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, tap that notification bell so you don't miss any of these new episodes. And if you're interested in joining our Dog Pack community, head to jointhedogs.com. Subscribe to the Patreon there. The lowest tier is $5 a month. That's all it takes to get in there, be part of the community, and it really helps support the podcast. We appreciate everybody in there. Our Dog Pack group is the best. You get access to the private Discord. You can play fantasy football with us when that rolls back around. We've got dynasty leagues in there that have already kicked off for 2025, all that kind of good stuff. And again, if you're not interested in any of that stuff, you just want to help support the show, help support the show. We appreciate everybody and everything that you guys do to help out the podcast. All right, so before we dive in, just want to remind everybody, same thing as last week, Barry's internet connection, a little shaky. So we've got a couple, pauses, cuts in and outs, all that kind of thing. But overall, great conversation, great information about these players. So check it out and then drop in the comments when we're done. Let us know what you guys think about these prospects that Barry saw at the Senior Bowl. All right, so Barry Shuck with us from dogsbynature.com back on the show this week. And, Barry was here last week, did a great job breaking down all of the offensive positions that he took away from the Senior Bowl. We went through quarterbacks on the first episode. That was a lengthy discussion because obviously the Browns are in the market for a quarterback this year. Then we talked about the skill position players, the running backs, the wide receivers, tight ends. And then we got into offensive line, and today we are going into the defensive side of the ball. So Barry's got a list of names prepared for us at each of these positions to break down what he saw at the Senior Bowl. And I can't wait to get everything from you, Barry. So thanks for coming back and doing another episode here with me.
Always, always, always. I need to ask, how's your baby doing?
He's good. He's about as good as a baby experience can be by all accounts from what I've heard from other people. I hear horror stories and things like that. And honestly, I feel like we're getting decent sleep. He's not overly cryy. I'm pretty pleased with it.
Yeah. So he's sleeping all night now?
No, he's not sleeping all night, but he's giving us nice stretches.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So that's all good.
Good deal.
Yeah. So, a little bit more rested than I was the first week or so, but things are definitely going well. So I appreciate you checking in on that. So let's kick off this discussion. Let's do the defensive line first. And we'll start out wide on the edge. Talk to me about some edge rushers that you saw at the Senior Bowl that you think could be guys that the Browns could get. There's definitely one name here in particular that I do want to talk about, and I know we will, but I'll let you go through however order you have these guys.
Well, at the Senior Bowl, 2 guys really stood out. One was Mike Green from Marshall. He led the nation in sacks last year, had 17 sacks.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Now, having said that, and if you go on YouTube and type in Senior Bowl Mike Green on YouTube, nobody could block him. He just gets shot out of a gun coming off that first step. But I went and looked at his college stats game by game to see where all these sacks came from. And, he got a couple of sacks against Georgia State. He got some sacks against Old Dominion. So, yeah, I guess if you're in that conference, the Sun Belt Conference, then it's possible that you could get 17 sacks in a single season. He had 33 tackles for loss. He had 131 total tackles. Now, let me say that again. He had 131 total tackles this past year.
This year?
He's highly productive. 4 forced fumbles. Let me see what his height and weight is. He's not a very meaty guy. He's 6'4", but he's only 248. I don't know what would happen if he added 30 pounds and got to be close to 280. He kind of looks like a linebacker more than he does an edge rusher. But that first step, he is just a bullet coming right off the snap. And I think him and another guy, Shemar Stewart, they were the two guys that everybody talked about, because no offensive lineman, I don't care who it is, and there were several that are going to be drafted in the bottom half of the first round and all in the second round, none of them could draft him.
You mean block him?
I mean, block him, excuse me.
Yeah, so you mentioned Mike Green last week when we were talking about offensive linemen, and I forget which one it was. You said there was one guy who was the only one who could almost block him, I think you said. So it sounds like Mike Green is insane, in his pass rush. And I watched a couple highlights from the Senior Bowl where I saw exactly what you just described. Definitely not as big as, because I don't watch Marshall football. I didn't really know Mike Green. Watching the highlights, right. I'm thinking, this guy isn't nearly as big as I was expecting for the production and the hype and everything about him. But I saw him go up against a massive offensive lineman, much bigger than him, and he just rocked him, just right through the guy, put him on his ass, and just, it's like, holy crap, this guy's explosive. And you're right, if he could put on, and I don't even know if it'd have to be 30 pounds, like get 15 more. Let's cut that in half and just be a speed rusher off the edge. His power is already pro level, or at least I thought so, watching a couple of those things. So really cool to hear about Mike Green. Now, did you say, I'm sorry if you said in there about draft round, but I see him being mocked first round in a lot of places.
Yeah, I think he's ranked number 11. Okay. By the way, I'm on the phone with Mike Green's agent. I'm telling him that instead of Green adding 30 pounds, that you've said to gain 15 pounds. So I think that's going to work right there.
Okay.
But he's ranked number 11. I use Pro Football Focus's big board, and they rank him number 11. He could shoot up a little bit, because I'm telling you, he just absolutely dominated everybody but Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. He absolutely dominated. And it almost looked like he was rushing against high school guys. He would just come off that line, and before you know it, he would lean, and before you know it, he would be past the guy. And most of these guys were trying to use their arms to do a reach and try to push him deep into the pocket. It was just too late. He was already, as the quarterback was dropping back from the center snap to get into position in the pocket, Mike Green was already there.
I mean, he sounds like a stud, and definitely looks like one in the highlights that I was watching from the Senior Bowl. And by all accounts, it wasn't just the highlights. Like, that was it. That was the show, with Mike Green was just running these offensive linemen into the ground. So that's definitely a name to keep an eye on. So let's tell me more about Shemar Stewart.
Shemar Stewart didn't have the sacks that I thought he would have. He's a big guy, though, 6'5", 6'6", 290. He kind of body-wise looks like Alex Wright to me. Lean, looks like a basketball player. I did an interview with him. He told me he played basketball in high school. In fact, coming out of high school, he thought he was going to go to college on a basketball scholarship. But he was impressive all week. Let me look at his stats. I don't think he had a whole lot of sacks in college. Let's see, 4.5 in 2.5 season. That's nothing. 65 total tackles last year. That isn't what his stats are about, though. He was in the offensive backfield. Like Mike Green, he just shot out of a cannon right off the snap. He's got a rare blend of size and movement skills. for being a big man at 290 pounds, and he shows good lateral agility when they would call stunts, and he's got impressive closing burst to the quarterback. Just about every play that I saw, especially on the one-on-ones, he was past the offensive lineman, whether he took an inside route or an outside route. He is a versatile defensive weapon, though. He can move inside and play defensive tackle because he's got the girth. Although he's a lean frame guy, he does have the girth to take on the interior offensive line. And a note that I have is that he converted his speed to power with impressive force. He looks like a guy that'll be taken around before the Senior Bowl. Looked like he was going to be the end of first round, like number 28. But I think he'll go probably late teens or maybe 20, 21. If the Browns want him, they're going to have to trade down to get him, and they might have to trade down twice. So if you trade down from 2 to, say, 6 or 7, and then trade down again, then I think that that's a place that he could take Stewart. Now, here's an interesting thing, Josh. After Tuesday practice and Wednesday practice, which is full contact, Thursday practice is full contact, and then Friday is shorts and helmets and walkthrough. After the first 2 practices, both Green and Stewart left the Senior Bowl.
Okay, so they felt like they had done enough, shown enough. No need to go back out there for the game. We're ready to roll first rounders.
How crazy is that?
You hear that. Every year there's guys, right, that leave the Senior Bowl after a couple practices and say, I'm good. I showed what I need to show. I'm getting drafted in the first round. No need to go any further.
Yep. They completely balled out. They completely showed out. And after 2 days, I think both their agents, I don't know if they have the same agent or not, but both their agents probably told them, look, all you can do is go down from here. You've already impressed. I'd book. I'd jet right now. And both of them did. That was the end of it. They didn't practice Thursday. They didn't do walkthroughs on Friday. They didn't do all the community stuff on Saturday, leading up to the game on Saturday and Friday night. And they didn't play in the game. They just took off.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you had a good enough showing that you don't need to stick around and, I get it. Like, why risk getting injured in the game or anything like that? Having a bad day or something. If your stock is already that high, take it and run. I mean, you are not in college anymore. This is business, and that is a business decision for sure. You did mention about, the Browns would need to trade down or something like that if they want to get them. There's also the possibility the Browns decide to take that 33 and trade back into the first round, pair it up with some other picks and come back up. And so I think that there's the potential for the Browns to move around this year in that first round, later in the first round, like you said, either moving down or they could move, up a couple spots to get back into the first if they want to. They've definitely got more options this year than they've had in years past, which will be a lot of fun come draft night and draft weekend.
They have 12 total picks this year.
That's a lot. Like, do you think they're going to use them all? Do you think they'll make all 12 picks?
No. They'll use that to travel up and down the board. Now, 3 of those are compensatories. 2 of them are in the 6th round and 1 is in the 7th round, which they did not have a 7th round pick. They had traded it off, I think, in the Mike Williams trade to the Bears. I think that was included, either that or the Amari Cooper trade, but they had traded away their 7th pick. But 3 are compensatory picks. But this year, it's exciting. They've got a 1st round pick. They got a 2nd round pick. That's great. It's been a long time since we've seen that.
Yeah, and I mean, in all reality, it's almost like 2 1st round picks because it's 33. It's the first pick in the 2nd round, like you said last week, and you get their pick of the litter on day 2. It's pretty awesome. So definitely.
And the thing about the first pick of the 2nd round, it's actually a 1st round pick for 2nd round money.
That's a good point. That is a good way to think of that. I like that. All right, so were those your 2 edge rushers you wanted to talk about? Was there anybody else at that position?
Yeah, I got one more.
Okay.
Donovan Ezeiruaku from Boston College. 6'2", 247. When I first met him, I didn't know his position. I just interviewed him. I had to research to see who he was, what position he played, so that my questions in the interview could pertain to his position. I thought he was a linebacker. I thought he was a tight end. I didn't know what he was. 247. He looked kind of smallish to me, but the dude had 16 and a half sacks last year.
Wow.
In the ACC, he was second in the nation in sacks. Then once started watching practice on him, the guy is just a baller. He's just all out. He's got a high motor, and he's just moving the entire time. He's progressing towards the offensive backfield. He had 80 total tackles last year, so he's not a one-trick pony and just a pass rusher. He can defend the run as well. Impressive. And I just couldn't believe for his size that he could do that. Runs a 4.6240, so he's not as quick as I thought he was going to be for only weighing 248 pounds. But played in the ACC, which was not easy. He's got exceptional bend and ankle flexion when rushing the passer, and he consistently showed the ability to maintain pass rushing speed while cornering around offensive tackles. He did use a lean quite a bit to try to get around. Offensive tackles got wingspans that are huge, and so he had to deal with that. But he looked like a disciplined edge setter in the run game when they were doing the 11-on-11, and he did maintain gap integrity.
All right, well, cool. I'm glad that you brought him up, because that's a name I was not familiar with heading into this process. So that's another guy to keep, on your mind as Browns fans out there. Now, what round kind of projection would you see this guy going?
Late second.
Okay, late second. So definitely some movability for the Browns.
Late second, maybe early second. Actually, if the Browns wanted to use him at the first pick of the second round, that wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Okay, so he was that impressive. That's cool. Good to know. All right, so that is the final edge rusher, correct?
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Butcher Box for Pets. Browns fans, it's about time the Dogs offered you something for the real dogs in your life. Our furry friends aren't just pets, they're part of the family. And you wouldn't let yourself or your children eat strange meat from questionable sources, and your dog shouldn't either. Right now, head to butcherboxforpets.com/dogs or use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, to get 20% off your entire order. At ButcherBox, they believe in real ingredients. Their pet foods have been developed and certified by vet nutritionists to contain zero artificial flavors or preservatives. You get protein-packed formula with over 50% of the recipe comprised of third-party certified humane ButcherBox meat, plus functional ingredients like pre- and postbiotics to support your dog's vitality and digestion. And ButcherBox even removes the guesswork for you. Their custom meal plans are perfectly portioned to fit your dog's nutritional needs based on 8 factors, including age, weight, and activity level. I know my home wouldn't be the same without Odie, our 100-pound golden who thinks he's a 10-pound lap dog, and it gives us peace of mind knowing that we're giving him quality food instead of that factory processed garbage from the store. And speaking of the store, no need to add dog food to the shopping list ever again. ButcherBox delivers their high-quality food right to your door on the right feeding schedule for your dog. And you can change, modify, or pause your plan at any time. So head to butcherboxforpets.com/dogs and use promo code DAWGS for 20% off your order. It's time for all of us dogs to give all of our dogs the nutrition they deserve.
Yeah, well, move on to defensive tackles.
Let's do it. Let's get into the interior.
Who I thought was the most impressive. Yeah, most impressive of the Senior Bowl was Walter Nolen of Ole Miss, 6'3", 305, just a huge body guy. Just plugged his gap. It was difficult for anybody to move him at all. I'd say his best attributes was his gap dependability. He did have an explosive first step, off the snap, which was unusual for such a big guy. And that allowed him to consistently beat offensive guards into their set. And but he showed up repeatedly against the pass rush as well as against the run, and that surprised me. I thought he was strictly a run stopper. He's got natural leverage, and he plays with outstanding pad level and core strength. This allowed him to control the point of attack and reset the line of scrimmage against single blocks. A lot of times they would double team him with the center and the guard because he just kept beating single blocks with the guard so impressively. He's got a compact frame, but like I said, he's got natural leverage to get underneath the taller offensive guards and got a decent bull rush. He was able to drive offensive linemen backward while maintaining his balance and power through contact.
That sounds awesome. Like the type of guy the Browns could use in the interior there. So that's Walter Nolen, right? Walter was his name.
Yeah, from Ole Miss. I've got him ranked at number 36.
Okay.
So that would be early second round, mid second round. So if the Browns wanted to defensive tackle, they didn't take the defensive tackle from Michigan in the first round. Then if they wanted to take one early, then Nolen would be there with the first pick of the second round.
Okay, I mean, that's one position that we do see. Andrew Berry every year drafts a defensive tackle at some point in the draft. I mean, used a second-round pick last year on Mike Hall. You know, I'm sure everybody has their different opinions on Mike Hall and how that pick went for the Browns in year one. But, hey, it was only 1 year so far, so we'll see how it goes. Who else on that defensive interior did you see at the Senior Bowl that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, for round 3, I would go with Alfred Collins of Texas. Now, this is a big boy. This is somebody that's going to eat a lot at the breakfast table. 6'5", 320. He was a senior, runs a 4.95 in the 40. So he's a quick guy to be so big. He's got, I would say, the prototypical NFL frame. Plus, he's got the length and anchor to eat up space in the trenches. He had an explosive get-off for his size, and that was surprising. He showcased the ability to shoot gaps and disrupt the blocking schemes, and he matches up well with offensive guards that are going to be just as tall, just as big, just as stout, and maybe not as quick as this guy. He's got scheme versatility. He showed the ability to two-gap or play one-gap techniques from multiple alignments. He did flash some penetration skills that he was able to knife through gaps and create havoc in the backfield. I thought he was more of a run stopper than he was a pass rusher, but he looked like he would have a high ceiling for a prospect, but he's got rare physical traits that be taught and presented significant developmental upside. But the Browns have a number 67 pick in the third round, and that's where I would expect him to go.
Cool. Yeah, he sounds like the right, to me anyway, he sounds like the right type of player to pair up with Mike Hall from last year, where Mike Hall is your smaller, faster, pass rushing more. That's kind of his specialty from the interior, where this guy is, I guess I kind of liken him. He sounds like Dalvin Tomlinson to me, like by the size and everything. Pretty good run stopper, but still not bad at the pass rush. I like what I'm hearing about him.
Yeah. Just a big man, just a very big man.
Yeah. Well, hey, we could use that, especially if he's got that speed too to go with it, which, typically when you talk about these interior defensive linemen who are that big, they slow. I mean, Siaki Ika, slow. These guys don't move very well, but from what you're saying, it sounds like he can get up and go. Yeah.
Another defensive tackle that's even faster was Sai'Vion Jones of LSU. Now, he's not as stout as some of these other defensive tackles. He only weighs 280, but he's 6'6". He runs a 4.72, Josh.
Wow.
As as a defensive tackle, which obviously he's got a good initial burst off the snap. And he combines NFL caliber length and creates advantages in the run game. He can stack, he can shed when he maintains his leverage, and he's got functional strength that shows up against tight ends, offensive guards, tackles. He can play outside, he can play inside. At the Senior Bowl, he was an interior guy the entire week. He's got adequate power at the point of attack, but he was able to handle single blocks effectively while he maintained his pad level. He had great body control, great balance. Generally, he was sound in setting the edge and coming with his gaps up the middle. His frame suggests that he's got scheme versatility. Like I said, he could possibly play on the outside. Just depends on what the team needs. And, of course, the Browns definitely need defensive tackles.
Yeah, whenever you just by giving me his size and his speed, I thought immediately, ooh, that sounds like a guy who could go outside. So I'm glad to hear you say that. What draft capital do you think he's going to warrant?
I think he'll be more of a fourth-round pick early. So, and the reason that I interviewed him or looked at those guys is guys that were playing at the Senior Bowl that were available within 5 picks above and 5 picks below where the Browns were going to draft, their number draft. That is who I focused on. That's who I looked at. That's who I talked to. And this guy fell within those parameters.
Excellent. So were these the only 3, or were there some other defensive tackles that you saw down there?
No, that was it.
Okay.
That was it.
I didn't see I did, but I don't remember the numbers. I saw a post earlier today that said it was talking about the depth of this defensive line class. And I think it was the defensive tackle position specifically. It was like twice the amount of players from that position were invited to the combine this year than last year. So I think if this is the draft where the Browns could get some pretty decent defensive tackle, depth and players later. And when I say later, I'm talking 3rd, 4th round. Right.
Yeah, there's plenty of them. A lot of big guys. We definitely need to address the defensive tackle position. In fact, I would have to say along the roster at all position groups, other than quarterback, I think defensive tackle is our worst area. I'm not impressed with Dalvin Tomlinson. He's got a year left on his contract. If they let him find employment elsewhere, that wouldn't bother me. Shelby Harris has been real productive, has been a good name. He gets hurt. He's like 33 years old. Mo Hurst can't stay on the field. When Mo Hurst is on the field and plays, he is tremendous.
Yep.
Mike Hall's a young guy. Sam Kamara plays in, plays out, but he's a journeyman. He's up and down. So we really don't have the consistency there along defensive tackle. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if they cleaned house and the only player left was Mike Hall.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked either. That's definitely a position they need to address. They're going to definitely be addressing it in free agency. They're going to draft at least one guy. What do you think about Ja'Wan Briggs? That's the other name that I know is still on the roster. He was a rookie last year. I thought toward the end of the year, I know we weren't playing the best competition. We were getting, playoff teams, second string and all that kind of stuff. But I thought Ja'Wan Briggs showed a little bit that maybe he could be a rotational piece if he continues to develop. But what did you think about him?
Yeah, I thought it was weird that we drafted him, I think, 6th round?
Yeah.
And then we cut him. Right off, he wasn't on the roster. We cut him. We put him on the practice squad. I don't remember Andrew Berry ever doing that to any of his draft picks. Now, there have been players that he has cut that surprised me, like Richard LeCount, the safety. I thought he would stay a little bit longer, but he didn't. And Ja'Wan Briggs was cut right off, put on the practice squad. He did play in 6 games this year. He had 13 total tackles, 1 fumble recovery, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. So when he was pulled up, now when I say he was pulled up, he was a practice squad guy that, this year they could bring up 2 guys from the practice squad and play them in games. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was ever a roster member. They just pulled him up 6 different games and let him play. But, he's got good size. He's a little bit on the stout side, 6'1", but he's 313 pounds. He's a developmental guy. It'd be interesting to see what happens in training camp with him this year.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm with you. Definitely a position the Browns have got to focus on, because our defensive line, especially if we end up losing Myles Garrett, boy, is that defensive line going to be a major weakness again, because Isaiah McGuire looks like he could be okay, but I don't think we're relying on him to be our top pass rusher. Alex Wright, not really sure how he's going to continue to develop after the injury and all. It's going to be his 4th year now. I don't know. We need to focus on that and get some guys for sure. All right, appreciate you guys tuning in for this episode, talking about the defensive line. Hopefully the Browns can get that shored up a little bit. Hopefully we'll see how things go with Myles Garrett here this offseason, all that kind of stuff. But we have got to start getting depth and future pieces in here to strengthen up this defensive line, because it was at one point looking like a strength for the team. And now all of a sudden it's starting to look like it could be a major weakness if we don't get things fixed up quickly. So next episode will be the linebackers, the defensive backfield, cornerback, safeties, and we do discuss a kicker, like I mentioned at the top of the show. Thanks again to Barry for all your information. Dogsbynature.com. Check him out on Twitter at Barry_Shuck. Give him a follow. Great information. Again, he's just full of great knowledge and wisdom, and everything that he brings away from the Senior Bowl and just from being, a Browns analyst in general is just awesome. We love having him be a great friend of the show, and then just an incredible asset to what we do here at the Dogs Podcast. So again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Tap like, subscribe, all that good stuff here on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on the podcast, and make sure you guys go back and check out all of our offensive players breakdown from the Senior Bowl from last week with Barry Shuck. And like I said, on the next one will be linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks, and the kicker. And until I see you guys in that one, let's go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dogs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedogspodcast.com.
This episode is brought to you by Danger Coffee. Browns fans, we talk about how Danger Coffee is made free from mold toxins that are in 45% of the world's coffee, but that's not all that Danger Coffee has to offer. Mineral and nutrient deficiencies are a big deal. They make you feel sick, tired, stressed, and they can give you brain fog. These deficiencies negatively affect your immune system, your digestion, sleep, metabolism. Have you ever wondered why you get an initial burst from your coffee, but then you get that little crash not long after? Danger Coffee's patent-pending process remineralizes your body with more than 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, leaving you more energized, engaged, powerful. These micronutrients enter the cells to boost performance. They bind to toxins to provide detoxification support. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line, guys, is minerals matter, and most of us really don't get enough of them on a daily basis. Danger Coffee delivers micronutrients, plus it gives you access to the minerals you already have. Head to dangercoffee.com, use our code DAWGS, DAWGS, for 10% off your order, and that code can be used over and over, so you get 10% off every order you make using code DAWGS. It's time to start every day off with a cup of coffee that gets you going and actually keeps you going. dangercoffee.com, code DAWGS.